Hey everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Benjamin Poole, one of the head traders at Verified Investing with the Data Gym. At least that's what I'm currently calling it. What I'm going to do today, there were a couple different questions on a couple of different stocks in the comment section of my last video. And so I'm going to cover two of those really basically. There are three other charts that kind of dive deep inside of them to kind of give you an idea of what I'm seeing in the charts and how you can draw basic trend lines so you can make the most out of trades. When a lot of people look at the charts, it just looks like a bunch of jumbled mess, and there's no real rhyme or reason to where price action has been or where price action is going. So I'm going to kind of simplify that for you and show you what I'm seeing in the charts. So the first stock I'm going to go over is OKLO, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to do Bitcoin, just in case you were curious about what's happening with Bitcoin, and the bottom could be in. All right, the first stock I'm going to go over is OKLO. Right now, the first thing that I notice is OKLO is catching a lot of support on this previous all-time high from the 5th of August, 2025. You've also got this head and shoulders pattern that I had drawn in. If you don't see it in this chart, that's okay. I have it in a previous video. Go check that out, and you can see where the measured move is and how I draw head and shoulders patterns. I'm going to dive in a little bit more simply. So what I'm seeing right now is price action is continuing to catch some support at $85.54. So now what you got to look at is where could price action possibly go? I'm looking at this down sloping trend line that connects this pivot high, this secondary pivot. There are a couple different pivots that you can create. However, I look for the major pivots in the charts. So you can either connect this pivot high right here from the all-time highs from the 15th of October, connecting it through the secondary pivot and creating this down sloping trend line, indicating that price action is in a downtrend. Or another way you can do it is you can connect this pivot high right here, which is the high of from the 16th of October, and then extend this out a little bit and look at how price action is still consolidating underneath this down sloping trend line. This shows you how much selling pressure and how much resistance this trend line provides. What I'm looking at now is this downtrend. So you got this pivot high, you got this pivot low, you got this pivot high, which is a lower high, and then you've got a little bit of a lower low, and then you have a lower high, and you're creating a little bit of a lower low. As long as price action can stay above this $85.70 level on OKLO, you have the potential to get to this down sloping trend line, consolidate, and then finally break out of this down sloping trend line. Another thing, if you zoom out in the charts a little bit more, I'm going to draw this trend line that connects this pivot low here, this secondary pivot, actually this group of pivots, this secondary pivot, and look at where price action is currently sitting. Look at how beautiful trend lines can be. It can show you where price action is likely to get a bounce. If you keep a couple different trend lines in your back pocket and line them up together, you can get a targeted entry price. This is the first hit, second hit, third hit of this upsloping trend line. So on the fourth hit, you're likely to, it's about a 50-50 whether you get a bounce or a pullback. In this case, it got a bounce. And in addition, you have this previous all-time high, which is another support level. You've combined a couple different factors, and that shows you that there's likely to be buying pressure for OKLO, at least to this point. So the next thing you want to do is say, or look at where price action could go if trend lines break. Trend lines are only as support and resistance until the trend line is broken. Right now, both of those trend lines, the down sloping trend line and the up sloping trend line, are holding the price action. If price action does break below this down sloping trend line, or this up sloping trend line, you're likely to continue to roll over and head down to this low pivot around $66.22. Not only do you have this low pivot, but look at all this price consolidation right in this area, indicating that there has been previous buying pressure, which means that there's likely buyers going to be lined up to continue the support in this area as well. On the upside, if you get a break of this down sloping trend line to the upside, what we'd want to do is wait for a continuation move to the upside, wait for a retrace, probably back to this $85.70 level. And then you could possibly look for a move up to around $125. The reason I like this $125, $126 is look at all this price consolidation on the upside. This is going to be pretty strong resistance. You got to think about being stuck in this trade. So each one of these trades or each one of these candles identifies a group of individuals who are stuck. And if you've ever been stuck down on a trade, you know how much pain that can be. The human psychology or the human psyche wants to avoid as much pain as possible and as quickly as possible. So once you get that move back up to that gap in the charts, you're likely to see a pullback. People who were long now exiting the trade, we want to capitalize on that and take advantage of their selling pressure and drive that down. That would be my shortable level on OKLO. Now, the next stock I'm going to go over real quickly is LUNR. This was one of the things that our members, or one of my subscribers, asked me about. Here's this upswing trend line. Right now, price action got below it, never really confirmed below it. And now if we can get price action back above this upsloping trend line, then you can continue to make another move higher. You're likely to hit this $14.40 level. And then you've got this downsloping trend line that I'm going to connect this pivot top to this secondary pivot. So here's your basically your wedge pattern. If price action continues to break to the downside, you're going to hit this $6.05 level. If you can break out to the upside, you're hitting $14.49 and could even continue higher. The next stock I'm going to take a look at is COIN. I have a lot of different price action. The Coinbase chart is going to be really dependent on what happens with Bitcoin. It's kind of a mirror of the Bitcoin chart. It doesn't only have Bitcoin, but because of all the altcoins generally trade with inside of Bitcoin, we need another move to the upside in Bitcoin in order for this continuation move that I'm about to show you play out. Here's the chart of Coinbase. Here's this beautiful downsloping trend line. As you can see, price action has actually done a pretty good job of staying below this. Similar with other charts, you had a pivot high and then a lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. So now we need to break this downsloping trend line, and then we've got to break a couple different pivots. So the first area of resistance is going to be right here at $83.82. This was a low pivot. So when price action gets up into that area again, not only is it a gap fill, but it's a previous pivot, meaning that price action, when it gets back up to that level, it's going to sell off. You could get about a 3 to 4% pullback from that level. If price consolidates at the $280 level right underneath this resistance, then you're going to go higher and likely go to the $329 level. And then we want additional price consolidation. My upside target on Coinbase, if we can break this downsloping trend line, is $387. I don't go over this much, but I'm going to show you the RSI. This was a stock that's trading about 46% down from the all-time highs, meaning that at one point there was a lot of buying pressure in this. People are able to pick this up for a discount. The RSI is showing that it's oversold. So all of the sellers had the opportunity to get out of the trade. Once those sellers are out, then the buyers can then start driving this back to the upside. So here's the RSI. Look at how price action respected the 70, respected the 50. Now price action got below the 30. If we stay above $232, Coinbase is going to continue higher. Also, if you zoom out in the charts, look at all of the support in this area. So not only is this low pivot support, you had this previous gap fill and this wide range green bar candle, which is where Coinbase got its support. Then you can continue to move to the upside. If support breaks $231.08, you're likely coming back down to this $205 gap fill. There is a lot of price action to be had or gains to be given up if this support level fails. So that's where my next support level is. And then look at how many gaps in the charts on the way down there is. So there will be some support levels on the way down. However, this is the first support level that I have. Plus the $200 whole round number is another good level for the Coinbase chart. Overall, I'm liking the price action of Coinbase. Again, that downsloping trend line needs to be broken, and then we can get another push to the upside. Boeing is another stock that I had in the comments, so I'm going to go over that real quickly for you. Down sloping trend line, similar to what's happening with Coinbase. This did catch support right here at this low pivot. Actually, it got support right here, this low pivot, excuse me. I still have a downside target of $162.50 unless we can break this down sloping trend line. $162 is this major gap fill in charts. And the reason I say this is a major gap fill is look at what happened. Price action gapped above 3 to 5% to the upside, and then all of a sudden it took off to the upside. So it moved 50% from that gap fill. Once price action gets back into this level, there will be people who wished they would have bought or had bought on the way up. And so they think, if I can continue to dollar cost average into this $162.50 level is going to be a great buying opportunity, especially if the lows are in, especially if we can pick this up for a pretty significant discount. Look at this, 33% from the previous, from the recent pivot top from the July 2025. And then look at this high from 2024. This would be a 40% move to the downside. Okay. That's not the previous all-time high though. Look at how far it is off of the all-time high. Again, look at the RSI as well. I'm going to go ahead and zoom back in on the charts. The RSI is way oversold, starting to put in a little bit of bullish consolidation on the RSI, indicating that the buyer or the sellers have now cleared out of the way, pushed it so far down. Now it can have a reflex bounce to the upside. What I'm looking at is this down sloping trend line break though. All right, now let's go into Bitcoin. I'm going to show you how I've drawn trend lines and how successful they can be if you play them correctly. Bitcoin got down to around $80,000 from a drop of $126,000. If you were in Bitcoin and you're a Bitcoin maxi, you're licking your chops thinking this is a buy of a lifetime. I had a friend actually who kind of called the top. When people are max bullish on something, when I saw this post on social media, he said, Bitcoin's at 124,000. It was down to $110,000 just the other day. I wish I would have bought more. It did surge up to $126, and then all of a sudden the bottom fell out of it and has continued down along this down sloping trend line. It's continued to bounce against. I'm actually seeing a lot of charts that are creating these down sloping trend lines, indicating that they're still in bearish patterns until this trend line breaks. So here's the chart of Bitcoin that I was mentioning. To a lot of people, this looks like just a bunch of noise. What am I seeing in the charts though? First off, I notice that we're in a downtrend. You got this pivot top, you got a little bit of a low, a lower high, a lower low, a little bit of a lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. Okay, this tells me that we've still got a lot of selling pressure. The other thing I'm looking at is where is the next trend line that we can connect previous price action to see where price is likely to go. If you take this previous all-time high, connect it with these two pivots, look at what happened. Price action got below it. If we can reestablish ourselves back inside or above this downsloping trend line, your next level of resistance is going to be $92,972. You had a little bit of resistance here, and then you had some resistance here. So price action needs to clear this area, and then you can make another push to the upside. What I really like to see is we did break below this, but we didn't confirm below this downsloping trend line. And so this indicates that the buyers can now step back in, getting rid of all the sellers and push this up. Look at also what's going on in the RSI. You don't see Bitcoin trading down in the 30 very often before it continues to move to the upside. This tells me that the buyers have pushed, or the sellers have pushed this down so far that now we should get a pretty sizable rebound on the charts. We still have a couple downs, or a downsloping trend line that we have to contend with, that it looks like we're creating price action above that. We haven't confirmed, but once we do, we could get a nice retrace and then a catastrophic move back to the upside. $92,972 is the next level of resistance. And then you're going to have this level right at about 100,000. Look at all this price action where price is going to be resisted. You bust through that, and then all of a sudden, you're going to come back up to this down sloping trend line right here and then get rejected. But then again, if Bitcoin can continue to break through these resistance levels as Bitcoin has done in the past, then we're coming back up to right around 124,000 before we get another pullback. Right now, Bitcoin is still in a downtrend. So I'm not saying Bitcoin is done. I'm just saying there was an opportunity for the bears to step in and try to really continue to push the price action of Bitcoin down. Now we're having this rebound effect. And so likely the bulls can now take charge of Bitcoin and continue the move to the upside. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here with me. Thanks for watching my videos. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for liking, subscribing. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next time in the charts. You guys have a great rest of your day. Take care.